Hi, I did a video a few weeks ago. It was about how I have been excluded from my inheritance that I have a right to, that is given by the government of India, the Constitution of India, and how I'm being excluded from it. That is mainly because I'm a daughter, and in some traditional Indian families, that is still being discriminated as. And in that video, I talked about how what were my career goals were and how I had wanted to achieve those and how I was stopped and I was not allowed to do what I wanted. So in that video I asked if you can guess what was the career that I wanted. In this video I'll talk about that. So hang around please. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Abha. I vlog about my life as an immigrant. I have been an immigrant for a very long time, 27 years to be precise. I vlog about that and also as a woman in 50s, the challenges that come and how it affects me and what I do about it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how the decisions made by my parents changed or affected me because I want affected my career because I wanted to be something else and my parents wanted me to be something else. And in the end, I think my love for them was just way more than their love for me. So I let them have their say. So I want to just let anyone else know who has been in the same boat or is in the same boat to know that they are not alone. So, starting from when I was growing up, I grew up in a very traditional Indian family. My parents were very strict parents. My mom was not a very educated lady, but she always wanted us to have a career. She wanted us to be financially independent. She had four daughters, so we were four sisters, and she wanted all of us to have financial independence that she didn't have. So she always encouraged us to study hard, study well. She took upon herself to do all the housework and not let us do it because she wanted us to focus on our studies. Fast forward few years when I was almost finishing my school and I wanted to be, here it comes. I had always, from as long as I can remember, since my early teenage years, there was one thing that I wanted to be in my dreams. That's how I would see. That's how I would see myself. I wanted to be a scientist, a research scientist. I always saw myself as wearing this white coat, standing in a laboratory, doing experiments, doing research, scientific research to help everyone find cure for diseases. Because I had done specialization in microbiology and also in chemistry, so it was a very good combination for me to be a research scientist, and that's all I had always dreamt about. In the previous video where I talked about how I was excluded or I'm being excluded from my inheritance, I talked about how I was not how my parents wanted, especially my dad. For him, the girls should only have two careers, only two professions that suit girls. First is a doctor, that's the first choice, and second, teacher. If you cannot be a doctor, you have to be a teacher. Those are the only two professions, as per him, that suit women. We should not be doing anything else. That came as a very big surprise to me because initial years were we had all kind of I have heard my parents all the time saying their daughters are like their sons and they are raising them like their sons. Anything that a son has in other families, that's what they're giving their daughters. I was very proud of my parents and their thinking. But when it was time for me to decide on the dream, my my dream, my goal, I knew that it's going to be difficult. The problem was I was very academic oriented. I was a good student. Science was my life. I loved science. Um, I'm known to even write letters in physical chemistry formulas, in mathematical formulas. I was that passionate about science. So being a scientist was my ultimate dream. Doctor did not figure anywhere in it. I'm not good with blood and gore. So that was out of question for me. On top of that, we grew up in a very poor family. My parents could not afford. In the other video, you will hear about how that was, I believe, a total lie, just to keep us deprived of even smallest of the nice things in life. It's not about this. I'm not talking about poor me. This is not a poor me video. This is just a fact I'm telling you. So, being raised in a very poor family where we were always told, you cannot have this, you cannot have that because we are poor. And there were a lot of issues in our household. There was domestic violence, there was always arguments and fights. And I always thought that is because we don't have money, because we cannot have even slightest of the nice things. We can't go out for dinner even once a year. But I thought if we had a bit more money, if we could afford a little bit of nice things, my mom will be more happy, my dad will be happier, and us sisters will be happier because we are so poor that the whole mental space is taken by poverty. And I thought this is a perfect way to get my family out of the poverty line, to get them have good things. Scientists are well paid. It's a good choice of career for me. And I thought I I just wanted more than anything, I wanted to lift my family out of the poverty we were living in. It so happened that the choice of my career, my dream, was just perfect to help them get out of that, to get my family out of that situation. If it was not the correct one, I would have probably changed my career and my dream just to see which career offered a better monetary gains, and I would have gone for it, even if it meant compromising a little bit. But luckily, scientist was just the perfect one for me. And I had the academic record, my grades were really good. But the only problem was I didn't want to be a doctor. And even if I would have changed that, as I said, to please my parents, or if they think I mean, doctors make good money as well. But to study for MBBS for 5 years, and then you have to have a specialization, that's about 2 years. It costs a lot of money. And my parents were so poor when we didn't know how are we going to, we are barely managing to pay the bills. We barely have any food in the cupboards. In the pantry was very bare. I knew my parents could not afford to pay for my education to become a doctor. So that was, and I thought that's fine. I don't want to be a doctor, and my parents cannot afford that education either. So that works fine as well. But guess what? I was wrong. After I did my master's, I got, I was just out of the university and I landed a job as a research assistant straight out of the university in one of the most prestigious research center in my hometown. I could not believe my luck. I was over the moon. When I saw the advertisement, I applied for it. I got the interview. I found out about what the research they are working on at that time. I just so wanted it because I could have got a job in any other labs anywhere. I mean, all labs are good, but this is next level. This is like the ultimate dream job in the dream laboratories, one of the best research laboratories. It's huge. It's a huge campus. I was just over the moon. And I thought, what can be the problem? Once I get the job, I have the qualification, I got a job. My parents wouldn't mind that. How bad it is if someone asks them, because all their life, what they have told us is about other people. What will other people think? What will other people think? If you do this, what will other people think? If you wear a dress, what will other people think? If you wear makeup, what will other people think? It was always about what will other people think. So I thought, there's nothing. It is a good job. It is academic. So they shouldn't have any problem telling the world all these. I don't know who asks them, but I thought they would be quite proud to say, my daughter is a scientist. She's working as a research assistant in this laboratory, like this research center. It was not a lab, it was a huge research center. And most people, their jaws would drop if they found that out. Like, that's the bestest, that's the one thing, that's the ultimate job in the ultimate research facility. So I thought that surely this is still science. It is not a doctor, but it is still related to research and scientific research, and maybe develop some medicines. Who knows? Cure for diseases. I was so wrong. When I told my dad that I've got a job as a research assistant in this, probably the number one research center, probably top 10 research centers in India, it was that huge. When I told him that, he said, no, you're not allowed. That's not a doctor. You're not allowed. Go be a teacher. And I still, I thought I can convince my dad. I went to the person who had hired me for the project they were working on, and I asked them to give me a few days to start work. I had already said yes to them. I said, yes, I want to do the job, because I had no clue my parents wouldn't allow me. I thought they will be okay with that job. So I tried to convince my dad. He wouldn't budge. I waited for a day thinking that he will calm down and I'll talk again. And I spoke with him again. He wouldn't. And I cried. This was my dream job. He doesn't even know. I don't think, sorry, it's very emotional. I don't think he ever asked me what I wanted to be. So I never told them. I was always, for years and years, they don't know that in my dreams, all I have seen myself as a research scientist. And I had achieved that goal. Now I was going to be one. But my dad, he didn't realize. He didn't realize how much it meant to me. And I was very confused. This is still an academic job line. What is his problem? After several days, when he didn't budge, I thought I'll stop talking to him. And he will miss that. He will miss seeing me. He will miss talking to me. And he will come around and he will give his blessings and he will say, go do it if that's what you want. It was almost 5 or 6 months. I didn't talk to my dad, hoping he will understand how important it is for me. He didn't. And as I said in my last video, I think I love my parents more than they love me. So I just gave in. It was too much for me not to talk to my parents. It didn't matter to them, but it mattered to me. I wanted them to be happy. All the time I had, sorry, all the time I had imagined that with my job, I will lift them out of poverty. And I was so happy that I could do that. But they had a problem with that. So, anyway, I had to say no to that job. And the things at home were not really good for me. I was very heartbroken that my parents did not understand how important that is for me. And there was a realization that they don't love me as much as I love them. So I just accepted that's okay. It is important for me. So I will give up my career and they will be happy with me. Then they said that I can only be a teacher. So I said, that's fine. I will apply for jobs as teacher. I will teach science. I will teach chemistry. See, I loved science. I know some people might find it weird, but for me, it was really interesting. And I excelled at it. I was really good at it. So I thought, okay, that's fine. I will teach high school students. I will teach them science. I'll teach them chemistry. But my dad didn't want me to work just anywhere because then he wouldn't know what I'm doing, where I'm going. So he denied me that. He said, I'm not allowed to just apply for any teacher's job. He didn't want me to do a job. He said, you're not allowed to do a job. Girls in our family do not do a job. I'm like, why did I study all my life? My mom has drummed into my head that I have to be financially independent. What am I going to do? How am I going to earn money? But my dad wouldn't listen. He's like, no, you sit at home and I'll pay you what you want. And I thought, where is he going to pay me? We don't even have money to even go and have one meal outside in a year. They don't have enough money to buy even like more than two clothes a year for us. How is he going to pay? But in that video, in my previous video, if you see, later on, I came to realize, and I believe now that they always had money. They just didn't want to spend it on their daughters. But at that time, I didn't know that. And when my now it all adds up. For him to say he will pay me, I was now it makes sense. How? Because they had money, but they just pretended because they didn't want to give us anything nice. They didn't want us to have good food, to get used to nice things in life because we were daughters. At that time, I thought he's just saying that to stop me from working. So I said, of course, no, I can't take money from you. You don't yourself have any money. How are you going to give me? And this is not my plan. My mom has told me to be financially independent. Why? I don't want to be dependent on you financially. So I said, I'm going to go and apply for teachers' jobs and earn whatever. So when I attended an interview, I got a job straight away. I have been lucky that way. Every interview I have attended in my whole life, I have been offered a job. I'm not bragging, again, just telling a fact that I was good, my knowledge was good. I was ready for those jobs. And obviously, other people thought I was capable as well. So I went and I applied for jobs. I didn't tell him. I thought, okay, now that I have told him I'm not going to be doing the research job, and he wants me to be teacher, so I will just go and apply for jobs as a teacher. And I got the job. It wasn't a very huge salary, but that's okay. I'm just out of university. Who's going to pay me a huge salary anyway? And this was like not something I saw myself as growing into that career because just teaching was just not me. So I thought this was just temporary. Even a little bit of money is fine for me. So at that point, when I went back home and I said, "Look, I have got a job as teacher, and I start from tomorrow." And my dad's like, "Nope, you cannot just go anywhere and teach. I don't know who those people are. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's a teaching job that you wanted me to do." But he didn't want me to work at a place he didn't know. So he wouldn't know where I was going, what time I was coming, whether I don't know, whatever his reasons. So at that time, he said that he will decide where I will work as a teacher. So he knew one of his um, students' parents. They owned a school, and he talked to them, and he told me that they are ready to employ you as a teacher of Hindi language. I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to teach a language. I did not want to teach 5-year olds. But I knew arguing with him, I'm not going to win. He's just going to cut me off. And because I love him more, I agreed. So I joined this school as a teacher, which I didn't want to be, teaching a language I didn't want to students like primary, I didn't want to. Anyway, after that, it was time for me to get married because that's what they wanted. I didn't want to get married. I was not ready to get married. I wanted to earn whatever little money I could. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I knew that I have to find a way to earn more money to help my parents get out of the poverty. We were so poor. I wanted my sisters to have a better life. They were all younger than me. So I wanted them to have a better life. So I wanted to earn money, lots of money, or enough money to help them out. I wanted my sisters to have nice things. I wanted my parents to have nice things. But I was told that being the eldest, if I don't get married, who's going to marry my other sisters? What will people think? That they have a 24-year-old who's not married? It must be something wrong with me or wrong with the family. And as a traditional Indian families, that's what is expected. Not all traditional families do that, believe me. None of my friends went through this. None, not a single one of them. One of my friends I went to university with, she studied the same thing. And when she came back, she joined another research lab. And within like 1 year, 2 years, she would send me these photos doing this job that I was so my dream job, her dream job too. And she would send me these photos of her being in a scientific suit and having a spray to disinfect before she enters some departments, and that just broke my heart continuously. That's that was my life that I knew I would never have. I'm not allowed to have. So it doesn't happen in all Indian families or all traditional Indian families. Most of them love their daughters. Like I understand if it is a matter of, when they say come back home early. India is not a very safe place for women. So when they say don't stay out till too long, don't go out alone, go in group, go with your friends. All that I understand, that those are safety measures. So one of the reasons my dad said I was not allowed to do the research job was, first, that was not a doctor, and second, he said that you will be in the in the lab doing your research, and you cannot just abruptly end it, right? So you have to let the experiment run. And what if it is late at night? You have to stay in the center till late. Well, that's how it is. Then if I have to stay, I have to stay. And I think being supportive would have been like my other friends, their parents or would have said that, okay, we will come and pick you up. I understand that. If there's safety concern, then how am I going to come home? Because this was a little bit far away. How am I going to come home alone? Then them saying, okay, you will need to wait there until we come and pick you up, or your brother will come and pick you up. I would understand that. But it was not about my safety. We could have worked around it. It was about I was not a doctor. Being a doctor, if I had to stay for night shift till late, that would have been fine with him. But cannot stay late if I work as a research scientist. So then it was, oh, in traditional families, the girls have to get married. The eldest one has to get married first. I was not ready. I did not want to get married. I did not want to get married to a random person either. So I was not allowed to choose my own partner, and I was not allowed to choose whether to be married or not. Anyway, that's a story for another day. So I did get married. It was an arranged marriage because I loved my parents more. I got married when I was 25, and I came to New Zealand within 6 months of it. I was probably not even 25, maybe 24, 25, something like that. So that's another thing. I never wanted to leave India. I wanted to be near my parents. I wanted to help them. I wanted them to be happy. I wanted to do things for them to make them happy. So I was not allowed to do that. Now I know they didn't need me to earn money for them. They already had it. That is like, I feel so stupid. I feel so stupid that I didn't put two and two together because I believe that they love me. I believe there is no such parent who would deprive their own daughters and stash wealth away for their son or for themselves. I mean, everyone is allowed to have save money for themselves, grow their wealth, but I just don't understand how a parent can do that while telling their kids this. I always say this dark cloud hanging over my head that we are poor, we don't have, we can't afford anything, we can't afford shoes for you, we can't afford clothes for you, we cannot afford food for you, and what we are giving to you is just the best we can do. If that was the best they can do, and that's what I believe, that actually that was the best they could do, I held no grudges against them. But knowing that they could have given us a little bit better life, but they chose not to because daughters are not worth it. That was hurtful. And later on, I talked about they adopted a son. So obviously, they accumulated more wealth for him to give it to their son because son is going to look after them. Son is going to do everything for them. Sons are meant to get all the wealth as per them. So later on, after he came into our lives, they started saving and creating wealth for him while letting us believe we were really poor. So I didn't want to move away from India. I wanted to be there. I wanted to earn money for them. I wanted to lift their lifestyle, life standards. I wanted to be there for my sisters. I wanted them to have nice things. But I got married to a person whose dream was to get out of India and settle somewhere else. So within 6 months of getting married, I moved out of India to the farthest place that anyone could possibly go, to New Zealand. I love New Zealand. This has been my home for way longer than India has been my home. But that is something I didn't want at that time. I didn't want to move away. And going so far away from everyone, I didn't know a single soul here. Completely cut off from my people, my network, my family, my friends. In those days where there was not all these WhatsApp or Viber or all these instant messaging services were not there. So it was very isolating. That story some other time. How that shaped my life. This video is only about my career goals and how what my parents chose for me affected my life. I could never be a scientist after that because when we came to New Zealand, we were new immigrants. So we had to start from scratch. My qualifications, they would have to be, I forgot the word, so they reassess it in order for me to find a job as a scientist, as anything. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot one detail. So when I was going back, when I was not allowed to do that job as a research assistant and be a research scientist, before the teacher thing happened, I thought, okay, fine. They don't want me to be a scientist because the experiments will take too long to finish. And now I can't be a doctor. Like that is established. I've passed that post. There's no going back. So I cannot be a doctor for my parents. And they can't afford that education for me anyway. So I went back to my other specialization, which I had done in microbiology. And immediately, and I applied for a job. So my other friend, who is now a scientist, who became a scientist at the same time, who applied for another lab job, she was actually working. Her first job was not as the research assistant. Her first job was as a microbiologist in a blood bank. So when I was talking to my friends and I told them that I cannot take that research assistant job because the experiments may take longer, and I can probably do a 9 to 5 job. So she was working at this lab, not lab. What was it? It was a um, blood blood collection center, and she was working as a microbiologist there. So she told me that there is actually a vacancy for another microbiologist, and if I want, I can apply for that. And their hours were 9 to 5, and I thought that's perfect. Like, not my dream job, but still close enough. I wouldn't mind, and my parents will be okay with it because it's 9 to 5. It's not exactly a job that I'll have to stay back till late. So, and I like the professionals there, the nurses, and everyone. So I took up that job, um, and I told my parents. They were not happy. So while they were not happy, and I was going back and forth with them about, they're like, no, 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 you cannot do that job. You cannot. And I was like, why can't I do this job? Because this ticks your boxes. So I worked there for a couple of months while I was still. This argument was going on at home about not allow that I'm not allowed. My mom did not have a problem with that. She was okay. She was like, as long as I'm earning money and giving it to her, she was fine. But my dad had a problem with that. He did not want me to be a microbiologist either. And I was kind of okay with that job. I was still liking it because I was doing blood tests for all these diseases. So it was a blood bank. And then I was testing the blood for different diseases before it goes to the hospitals for blood transfusions to patients. So I was doing that. But as I said, there was an argument going on in the background at home, and my dad didn't want me to do that. So I ended up leaving that job as well. And that's when the teacher job happened. I forgot about that job. So after that, I got married. Like, I took the teacher's job. Then I got married. Then I came to New Zealand. And I could not work as a microbiologist or as a research scientist because my qualification had to be reassessed. But we didn't have much money when we came here. We were starting from scratch, and I think it costed a little bit of money. um, and also, the New Zealand did not have as much opportunities. Like, there were labs and food manufacturing where I could have, like, there's a huge dairy industry, farming. So I could have, there are places manufacturing for food and all that I could have applied easily after getting my qualifications assessed. But these were like on outskirts of Auckland, and at that time I did not know how to drive, so I had to learn driving, and then we had to be able to afford 2 cars. So we managed to save some money for 1 car because at the same time, soon after we arrived, I found out that I was pregnant. So it was important for me to learn to drive because if I'm on my own, I need to take my child to hospitals for appointments, wherever, when if needed, if my husband is at work. So by the time I learned how to drive and we could save for another car, and then my son came along, it was starting to get a little bit late to start applying because I would have been out of that work of a microbiologist or a scientist for more than about 3 4 years by then. So you need to count from like when I first came out of the university with the qualification, and then my dad not allowing me to do the job, and then doing some other jobs, then getting married, then coming here, having a child, learning to drive, um, and being able to save enough to have another car, because we basically came with zero money. So that took maybe 3 or 4 years, and I was kind of starting to forget, because I was not practicing it. But I did have my books and everything. But as it happens in immigrant life, you do need you do need support of your family when you are trying to, if you are very focused on your career. So like I have friends here who came to New Zealand at the same time, and this is a very common thing that happens. So if there is support from family, if their parents or brothers or sisters or uncles or aunties, someone come and help them, then help the family, have help the new couple, or the young family, then the women can focus on their own career. They can devote that time, because someone else is at home, uh, taking care of some housework and looking after the children. But I didn't have that support, so my career took a back step. So that was not that important, because then it was important to just earn money. Like while I'm doing all this, we had to earn money, because my husband was working two jobs. So these were, one job was, he was lucky to get a job in his own um, field that he wanted, and also he was doing another job, an odd job, because we needed money and I was pregnant. So initially I couldn't work for some time while I was pregnant. So it was, by the time things started, like settling a little bit, I've had my child, we finally managed to save for two cars, and I was kind of losing touch with my academic side of it. And I was already, and in the meantime I had started working as well as, so I picked up any job that would come around, and most of it was like where you don't really need any qualification. And I found out very quickly that mostly call center and customer service jobs, you don't really need any qualification. You just need to be able to listen and provide the information. So that's what I picked up jobs, and as I said again, getting a job was never a problem with me. I applied for first job, and I got that. It was in a customer service position in a call center, and I worked there for as long as I could. Then when I had the second child, then I had to take a break again, and then I picked up another customer service job. So in all this, when life was happening, my connection to science was slowly disappearing, and I just accepted that as my life. Because and then some of the time some people suggested that um, I, I can go back to studies, like when my both my kids were in school. So my youngest one had started school, um, and quite a few people, I think I must have talked about it, because people could see how much I wanted to be a scientist, and how much I loved research labs and all that. So uh, a couple of people said that I can go back to studies again. I can do my requalification here, and I can start my career as a scientist if I want to, or a lab assistant. I think it was mostly lab assistant jobs that were available. But I just did, with two little kids, school going children, I did not have that much time, because I could not give up my job either. We needed two incomes to support our family. Um, so I could not leave my job. So it would have been just too much for me to manage a full time job, look after two children, school going young children, and study as well. So I just was not ready to do that. I did not want my my passion for what I wanted to do affect my children, the time with them. It was bad enough that I had to go back to full time work, put my children in daycare, um, and not what I would have wanted. I would have wanted to be there all the time with them while they were growing up. It was hard when I would go to pick them up from daycare, and they would say, "Oh, today your son said," like he would. I don't think he was even 1 year old. Like today they said. He said Baba Black Sheep. He goes Baba with other kids. I was like, oh, I missed that. So I missed. I would have stayed at home if we could afford, or if we had a little bit of help from back home. So by the time it was just the too much life had happened by then, and with two young kids, there was no way I would have enrolled in another course. So that dream just was completely squashed. I had talked about it every now and then, not every now and then, maybe a couple of times with a couple of people, and they have always been very surprised that that's normally not a choice that you hear quite often, that someone wanted to be a scientist. Usually, if it's doctors who then go into research. So now that my kids have grown up, they are both adults and they know what I wanted to be, and they are very sweet. And quite a few times when they have seen what I have missed out on, they encourage me. So, Mom, you can still do it. Go join university again and do it. So what if you're I'm turning 55 soon, I think. 55? Yeah. I'm turning 55 this year. I I don't think it's my time to do the studies. I think it's my children's time, not my time to focus on my career. Whatever has happened has happened. I just um, too much time has passed, and I have kind of made peace with that. That I will never be what I wanted to be. It's I just feel that it's too late. I know people don't believe that; they think that I can still do it, but if I join, even if I start studying again, it'll take me 3 years and I'll start from the bottom again, which I don't really want to because I'll be competing with all these youngsters who are coming out of university. My chances are very low of getting a job or to be at the level that I would have wanted to be by now. I would have been like a director of some huge research institute. When COVID hit, it was a huge reminder for me. It was a daily reminder for what I could have been, because you would hear all these updates from scientists who are working on vaccines or just general public announcements like how to prevent the diseases from spreading, and all that. So I was really, that was, I think maybe at that time I must have talked a couple of times about that. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a doctor. Maybe I would have been the one who would have found a way to deal with the COVID or the pandemics. I would have been the one who was working on it. I would have been the one who was, um, researching those viruses. So that was a little bit of a hard time because that was a reminder of what I could not be. So by this time, I don't think if I study now, I'll be at a position. I'll be quite. I don't think I'll be that happy. So I just believe that it was not meant to be for me. It was, even though it still hurts because I was so close. I was there, and then I was pulled out. I, even though I feel sad when I think about what I could have been and how I have worked hard for my dream job and how I could not achieve that, I have kind of accepted whatever happened. It cannot be changed, and I don't love my parents any less. I still love them a lot. I believe they have done whatever they have done, thinking what was right for the whole family at that time, not just me. So, as parents, they thought about the whole family. I know sometimes I find it difficult to believe it myself, but I think that it's just they did whatever they could, thinking what was best for me, what was best for the family, and that's how it is now. All I can do now, and I decided to do that, and I have done that. That I thought my kids will not be told what is their career choice. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am very career focused. academics is very academic focused. I mean, you cannot take that out of an Indian, in general, very academic. On like growing up in Indian families back in the days when I was growing up, you have to have a good academic record. You have to study hard. Sports and other, like my one of my sister wanted to be an accountant. I had to fight for her with my parents. What's wrong? Let her be an accountant if that's what she wants to be. One of my sisters wanted to be. She was great in sports. She wanted to participate in all these tournaments, and I had to fight with my parents to let them do that. So at that time, it was mainly like you're basically screwed if you don't study. So I still felt that I had always encouraged my children to study hard to get good marks, because for me that's how you can have a good life, a settled life with like decent lifestyle. So when they were in school, I had always told them to study hard, to focus hard, and I told my daughter the same thing, that it is really important to be financially independent. But when it was time for them to choose what they wanted to do, they both chose what they wanted to do. My only advice to them was, whatever you choose, just make sure it pays a decent income as well. You can afford a decent lifestyle, because having a passion about something is great. You should have. But at the same time, money is really important in life. So, whatever their passion is, I always reminded them before they make their choice, make sure it will also pay them a decent lifestyle. Otherwise, they need to look again at what they want to be. Because if it is not providing them with a good lifestyle, they have been raised here in New Zealand, they're not used to the life I have lived, where you don't know where the food is coming from, where the next meal is coming from. They will not, I don't want them ever to have that lifestyle, because I know how bad it is for everyone. So you do need decent income. And that's what I told them. I said, whatever you decide, make sure it pays decent income. Sometimes, this is my personal opinion. I feel that if you know what you're choosing is not going to pay you well, and you're going to feel bad when you see your friends from the same school or your same age group are earning way more than you are because they opted for a different career, then you're going to be very frustrated. Then you will not feel as passionate about your choice if it's not paying you a decent lifestyle. It doesn't have to make you a millionaire, but at least some decent lifestyle. I used to have a friend who was a specialist, a doctor, neurologist, earning heaps and heaps of money. Um, he's from, I think he settled in UK, earning huge amount of money, but he always complained that he wanted to be a historian, a history teacher. He just loves history, and he said all he wanted was to be a history teacher. But again, being from an Indian family, it is always they prefer your children to be like doctors, engineers, accountants, lawyers, um, all these things. Teaching is not like a well-paid profession in India, and he's living a good lifestyle, like really good lifestyle. And I always think when he talks about how he's going to take retirement and become a history teacher, and I think that if his parents would not have pushed him to be a doctor and would have let him be a history teacher, he wouldn't have had all the lifestyle that he affords now or he provides to his children. So, yes, that's not his preferred career choice, but it's not a choice that has made him poor. So, being a history teacher, he would have been poor. But being a doctor who specializes in neurosurgery, he can still be a historian. He can do that as a part time, just as a hobby. He can join a school and do that on a part time basis. Like if he's done with his earning money and everything, he can do his own work as a doctor, as a surgeon, part time, and he can be a history teacher part time, because he can afford to do that. He can afford to cut his income because he has had enough so far. So I believe that money is so important. And when we choose what we want to do, we have to think about how much, if it is going to give us a decent lifestyle. What we are passionate about, we can always do that as well. So if you choose a career that is going to, that you're not like completely, you don't hate it, but it is going to pay you well, you know that, and you know you will do good in it, you take that. And then the things that you're passionate about, you can still, after say 10 years, you can still go back into that on a, or you can go back at the same time. You can have that side by side just a little bit for your own happiness. That's what I feel anyway. And that's what I told my children, that make sure whatever you choose pays you decent lifestyle, pays you decent amount. Otherwise, you'll be very frustrated later on. But I have left that choice with them. After giving them that advice, it was up to them what they decide to do. So that's the lesson I learned while quite like while growing up, as when I was being discriminated for being a daughter. My brother, their son, got everything. He got the best of the clothes, the best of the food. He would get great gifts on his birthdays, everything. Because he got everything, he was really not interested in studies. My whole goal was to study hard. I would literally block all the arguments out of my ears, and I would just focus on studies. We lived in a very small one bedroom house, a studio sometimes. And there would always be things going on with four kids. And my brother came later on, and two parents who would be arguing a lot as well. And these little sisters I had to take care of. There was chaos. And in that, all I wanted was to study hard. My focus was like this: study, study, study. And I'm glad I did that. So even though I could not be what I wanted, but I could still get a job here because I could speak English. I had decent understanding. I grasped things fast, so I learned. I learned computer after coming here. Back in the days, it wasn't that big thing, so I learned things pretty quickly. And even though this is not something that I wanted how my career to shape up, but it was about money. So what was paying me better? So it is important that you have to think about that as well, and you can have your uh, the passion as well. I'm not saying give that up, have that, but make a conscious choice. Know that this is what will happen. It's on you then. If you decide, yeah, that's fine, I don't really need money, I don't care about money, I want to do what I want to. My opinion is you will get frustrated later on when you see your other friends doing better than you, enjoying their life better than you, having a better lifestyle. It'll really, you'll get frustrated. So I feel that you have to think about, when you're young and you can work hard, invest in money. Whatever little you're earning, invest. There are so many ways to earn money. So you can invest in that and you can still have what you like. Even if it is low paying, you can still afford to have that, because if you are wisely investing your money, saving your money, investing it, whatever you want to, shares, properties, bonds, anything. As long as you're financially okay, you can still do what you want to do. So anyway, I left that choice to my children to decide what they wanted to do. So, what I do now, how I cope with it, is my usual. Like, it does come back to me again and again what it would have been, especially now that I am a empty nester, almost empty nester. One of my child had gone but come back again. So for now, I'm a half empty nester. So it is a little bit, I have a lot of time now, so my mind goes back into what could have been and how my life has shaped up because of what happened, and how my parents took the decisions, or how I grew up, how it has affected me, how it has shaped me. Sometimes you have no control over it because it is just so ingrained in you. You try your best to do the best for yourself and your family, but sometimes it's just so hard. So now I have more time. Previously, even if all these things come to my mind, it wouldn't that much, because I was so busy with kids and job and house and everything, home, family, social life. I didn't have that much time. Now I do, so it does come back, and it is not very nice when you feel a little bit sad. Um, so I deal with it the way I normally do things now, and which is looking after my mental health. I have done videos on how I do that. Um, I like to do traveling, so I do that when I can. I like walking, I do that. There are different things, different ways I look after my mental health before I feel too sad, because life doesn't always go to as per our plans. I mean, it is sad, but that's how life is. It's not fair. It doesn't always go the way you want to. You can always think, oh, it would have gone this way, but you never know. How do I know for 100% sure it would have gone the way I would have wanted it, even if I had run away from home and lived my life the way I wanted? One thing is for sure, life keeps happening. It keeps throwing things at us. It doesn't go as per our plans. So whether it, however it has shaped towards this end of life, I always think that you will think about things, you will think about how it would have been, or feel sad about a few things. So you just have to look after yourself, you just have to look after your whole well-being. And I do different things to take care of myself, physically and mentally, and I do vlog about that. So in my playlists you will see how what I do about my wellness, my fitness, my mental health, everything. And you have to see it as a part of life. You cannot see it as, oh, poor me. I know, like, a whole life had gone differently to how you had wanted. It would have been so nice if it would go the way we want, but there is no guarantee that even if I would have had that option, it would have gone, it would have gone really well. Who knows? Most likely it would have, because my choice of career was not bad. It was a good choice. So you never know. But that's how life is. That's just life. It is full of disappointments. It is full of lots and lots of